Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this is August 21st, 2022 in Gita Nagari, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 28, Text 55. If any of you have like a phone or anything, or a book, you have a book, some of you could. Samamando Gato Gamyamatir Mahim Vicharan Padam Kaya Chinnirmitam Striya Saha. That's one. Twam, yourself. Vihaya, leaving. Mam, me. Bando, O friend. Gataha, went. Gramya, material. Matihi, whose consciousness. Mahim, to earth. Vicharan, traveling. Padam, position. Adrakchihi, you saw. Kayachit, by someone. Nirmitam, manufactured. Shriya, by a woman. Srila Prabhupada's translation. My dear friend, you are now my very same friend. Since you left me, you have become, this is Krishna talking to Vidarbhi, Krishna in the form of a Brahmana talking to Vidarbhi, who is symbolically the disciple, as she's lamenting the death of her husband, King Malayadwaj, who is symbolically the guru. So Krishna talking basically to the jiva. My dear friend, you are now my very same friend. Since you left me, you have become more and more materialistic. And not seeing me, you have been traveling in different forms throughout this material world, which was created by some woman. All right, so you want to see if this is going to work?
Yeah.
Let's try it. Yeah, well, let's just see. All right. Can you tell me, the Zoom people, can you hear me better? Worse, that is much better, we hear. All right. So much better. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Maybe you can show me where that is. So tomorrow, because I'll probably give class in the temple room again tomorrow, bring my computer and show me where that's kept.
Sure.
Thanks. Or if you can make sure you're here. One of the two.
Let's make sure.
Okay. Srila Prabhupada's purport. When the living entity falls down, he goes into the material world, which was created by the external energy of the Lord. This external energy is described herein as some woman or prakriti. This material world is composed of material elements, ingredients supplied by the Mahatattva, the total material energy. The material world created by this external energy becomes the so-called home of the conditioned soul. Within this material world, the conditioned soul accepts different apartments or different bodily forms, and then travels about. Sometimes he travels in the higher planetary systems, and sometimes in the lower systems. He has been wandering within this material universe since time immemorial. I would assume we can also go to other universes after the creation, yeah. As explained by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Brahmanya Brahmite Konya Bhagavan Jiva, Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lata Bija, Madhulila 19:151. The living entity wanders into many species of life, but he is fortunate when he once again meets his friend, either in person or through his representative. Actually, it is Krishna who personally advises all living entities to return home back to Godhead. Sometimes Krishna sends his representative, who, delivering Krishna's very message, canvasses all living entities to return home back to Godhead. Unfortunately, the living entity is so greatly attached to material enjoyment that he does not take the instructions of Krishna or his representative very seriously. I feel like Prabhupada's talking directly to me in that. You also feel that? I read this and I'm like, I'm going to read that again. Sometimes Krishna sends his representative who, delivering Krishna's very message, canvasses all living entities to return home back to Godhead. Unfortunately, the living entity is so greatly attached to material enjoyment that he does not take the instructions of Krishna or his representative very seriously. This material tendency is mentioned in this verse as Gramya Matihi, sense gratification. The word Mahi means within this material world. All living entities within this material world are sensually inclined. Consequently, they become entangled in different types of bodies and suffer the pains of material existence. Satwam vinaya mam bando gato gramya matir mahim vicharam padam adrakshi kaya chin nirmita shriya. My dear friend, you are now my very same friend. Since you left me, you have become more and more materialistic, and not seeing me, you have been traveling in different forms throughout this material world, which was created by some woman. So I thought it significant that this idea of created by some woman. But I thought first we'd look at this aspect of not taking things very seriously. There's this story that Prabhupada tells about how Indra became a pig. Yeah, he got cursed. He seems to have a problem with this. Yeah, we think, if I could be king of heaven, then I would be happy. But Indra seems to have, he has a lot of enemies. He gets cursed and so forth. He doesn't just have a peaceful life. So he gets cursed to become a pig. And then there's a problem because there's nobody running heaven anymore. He's the chief Kshatriya basically in the universe. Lord Brahma is the chief Brahmana, although he's also the engineer. So Lord Brahma has kind of a funny position. Sometimes he's equated with the super soul. Anyway, so there's nobody to run things. Like imagine, if Dhruva and Parijata took a long vacation, like 3 months, 4 months, and there was nobody running things. I've dealt with this kind of thing where there's a person who's in charge and they're running everything, and then for some reason or another, they're just gone. They just disappear. Poof. So Lord Brahma was having this problem. Who's going to run things? So he comes to Indra in the form of a pig, and he's trying to convince him. Imagine a pig on earth compared to the king of heaven. Right? Imagine that. Like if somebody came to you and said, oh, by the way, someone's just given you, $150 million or $150 billion. And you go, nah, I think I'll just stick to my life. So that was the situation that Lord Brahma comes and says, come on back. All right, you got your curse, you did it, now come back. And Indra says, what about my mate? What about my piglets? So this is the problem. And then Lord Brahma arranged that the pig keeper, the only reason people keep pigs is to kill them. Not like goats. You might keep them for milk or wool, or sheep you keep for wool, but you're keeping pigs. The only reason you're keeping pigs is to kill them. So Lord Brahma convinces the farmer that it's time to kill the mother pig, and then time to kill the baby pigs. And then finally, Indra was convinced, all the family I thought I was responsible for, they're dead. Let me go back. Then he took it seriously. Yeah. That's sad, isn't it? Sometimes we take Krishna consciousness seriously when our material life falls apart. That's it. I'm sure that's not Krishna's preferred method. All right, so here we have the idea that the living entity falls to this material world. And as I said in a previous class, that these verses in the Bhagavatam are some of the strongest places in the Bhagavatam itself, where the understanding that we were with Krishna in the spiritual world and that we fell to the material world from being with Krishna is established by the Bhagavatam itself. And Srila Prabhupada, in these purports to these verses, makes this point over and over again, that we were with Krishna in the spiritual world and we fell from the spiritual world. Hare Krishna. We'll just put that out again. I know this is a very controversial topic. But I want to look mostly here at the fact that the Lord is saying that the world is created by some woman, that this is the province of Devi Dam. This is her world. She's running it. Krishna does not mind having women in positions of management. The whole world is run by a woman. Yeah, and of course, in Goloka Vrindavan, you've got Vrinda Devi and Purnamasi running things and so forth. But he doesn't seem to have a problem with that. Anyway, so the concept, though, is that Maya Devi is one of the Lord's energies. Now, sometimes Maya Devi is compared to the Lord's sister, as like Subhadra, who's Yogamaya, or Durga Devi, who takes birth. She's kind of Yogamaya, Mahamaya, who takes birth from Yasoda as the Lord's sister. But in other places, Maya Devi is compared to a wife of the Lord, just like the earth is, Mahim we have here in today's verse, is the earth, is compared to the wife of the Lord. And Prabhupada talks about how when Krishna glances over the material energy, this is like if a man wakes up his wife who is sleeping in order to have enjoyment with her. So that Krishna wakes up the material energy because the material world, Lord does enjoy matter, but the material world is also a source of pleasure for the Lord. And how is that? I mean, we have one godbrother named Bhavananda. Actually, it's Bhavananda. Bhavananda. If ever I call him Bhavananda, he says it's Bhavananda. And he told me that Prabhupada asked him one time, do you know what your name means? And Bhavananda said, well, it means the happiness of bhava. Bhava can mean just existence, and it can also mean emotion. And in the science of rasa, there's 5 components of rasa, which are all different kinds of bhavas. There's the sthai bhav, the basic relationship one has with Krishna, servant, parental, conjugal, etc. And then there's the stimulus for that relationship, which is called the vibhava, Krishna and his devotees, which stimulate the devotees' relationship. There's the anubhava, which is how you demonstrate that relationship, how you demonstrate your love. You do something for Krishna, you do something for the devotees. There's the vyavichari bhavas, which are the various transitory emotions that come and go in that loving relationship. And there's the sattvika bhavas, the involuntary expressions of love, like hair standing on end and crying and like that. So these are all 5 bhavas. So Bhavananda said to Srila Prabhupada, well, my name must mean the happiness of all of these bhavas. And Prabhupada said, no, it's Bhavananda, which is the happiness of preaching in the material world. So Krishna also gets some pleasure in this material world. There is pastimes that our acharyas tell us he only displays in this world. Yes, and certainly he enjoys saving his fallen jivas. So the idea is that those who are properly situated, they facilitate the pleasure of the Lord, and those who are improperly situated, they try to take the pleasure of the Lord for themselves. That's sort of the essential feature that Krishna is bringing up here in this verse. You wanted to enjoy the woman. Therefore, you have come here. You have left my association and you have come here. So we have the Hanuman policy and the Ravana policy. And when you take the Ravana policy, then you travel through, as Prabhupada says here in this purport, many, what does he call it? Anyone remember? We go through many different, anybody remember what Prabhupada said? Apartments. Apartments. I assume sometimes it's a house. We go through many different living facilities. And if we want to return to a Hanuman consciousness, then we have to take the instructions of Guru and Krishna seriously. So let's look at the Hanuman's consciousness. Hanuman's consciousness is I take Sita away from Ravana and I unite her with Ram. Hanuman's happiness is when Sita and Ram are together. That's his happiness. He's not trying to get happiness from Sita directly. He's trying to get happiness from Sita serving Ram. Yes? Okay. So this is the constitutional position of the jiva. Srila Prabhupada gives the analogy over and over again that like parts of the body get happiness by serving the body. So if we have healthy hands, what do our hands do to be healthy? They have to feed the stomach. Now, I know they make a lot of cosmetics nowadays that are made out of food, right? I read once a story of a shampoo that smelled so much like flowers that it was people's hair was attracting bees. They had to take it off the market. So, we may put like avocado oil directly on our hands or aloe vera oil directly on our hands, and it goes through the skin. There's some transdermal. It is possible to get some transdermal, you all understand what I mean by transdermal nourishment. And there's medicines that you can wear patches. Yes? I read a really funny story about, so the doctor gave this woman medicine to wear as a patch. And every 3 days they said, every 3 days you put on a new patch. So after a while, this is a true story. After a while, she came to the doctor and she said, doctor, I don't know what to do now. I don't have any more place to put them. She just kept adding more and more patches. But they said, no, you take off the old one, put on the new one. So it is possible to get some medicine through the skin. That is possible to get some nourishment, but it's possible to get all of our nourishment through the skin. If the hand just rubs, if we go for breakfast prasadam and we take the khichdi or whatever, or Ken's bread he's making today, whatever specialty, and we take that and we just rub it on our hands. And that's all the way we try to eat, then our hands will become sickly. So the hands feed the stomach, and this is that we go through Krishna. We are part of Krishna. Even materially speaking, Prabhupada says we're all like cells in the universal body. I would didn't realize cells in the human body are alive. They're each a separate living entity. So we have billions of cells, trillions, I don't know, a lot in our body. And each of our little cells has their own little life. Yes. Each of our little cells is eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And probably each of our little cells doesn't know that we exist. Right? Each of our little brain cells probably doesn't know that it's serving us, but it is serving us. And if a little cell stops serving us and just starts serving itself, what do we call that? What happens if a cell stops serving the body and just serves itself? Cancer. That's what cancer is. So the natural happiness of the cell, when my skin cells and my lung cells and my brain cells and my heart cells and my stomach cells, when they all serve my interest, they all get nourished and they're all happy. And we want our cells to be happy. Do you want your cells to be happy? Yes? Does anybody want their cells to suffer? Are any of us thinking, I'm going to exploit those heart muscles, the brain neurons? I'm just going to exploit them. Oh, that would be self-defeating. So Krishna also doesn't want to exploit us. He doesn't depend on us in the same way we depend on ourselves, but he doesn't want to exploit us. He desires our happiness. I want my skin to be happy. I don't want to have unhappy skin. Any of you want to have unhappy skin? Krishna wants us to be happy. Genuinely, we're a part of him. Why would he not want us to be happy? A normal, functional parent wants their children to be happy. I mean, nowadays there's all kinds of, I don't even know if anybody in the room has a functional family, but a functional family, the parents want the children to be happy. The children want the parents to be happy. The husband and wife want each other to be happy. If it's a functional country, the government wants the citizens to be happy. If it's a functional, again, I don't know if there are any such things anymore in 2022, but if there's a functional business, the employer wants the employees to be happy. The employees are happy by serving the mission of the company, and the company, head of the company, wants the employees to be rightly situated. And if it's a really good company, the employees don't even have to think about their paycheck. They don't have to think about it. All there can be absorbed in their work and absorbed in the good of the company, and someone else in the company is making sure they're taken care of. This is an ideal government. It's an ideal business. It's an idea. This is why Krishna wants the universe run by devotees. This is why in ideal society, we'd have a God-conscious person as president and God-conscious people running Walmart and Monsanto and universities and hospitals and everything. Not that everybody who wants to be Krishna conscious just, runs to some kind of place like, separate from society. Krishna wants society run by devotees because devotees are going to have this mentality, ideally, that we want everyone to be happy. Imagine we're working for a good boss. I've had this experience where all I had to do was think about, I was working for a project where all I had to do was think about the service I was doing. I didn't have to think about anything else. All my needs were taken care of. Somebody cleaned my room, somebody did my laundry, somebody did the cooking for me. There was incredible morning programs. The temple room was packed, the kirtans, you felt like you were with Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda. The team running the project had good synergy and everything was perfect. And I was spending like 12 to 14 hours a day just focusing on the service I came there to do. So I focused on my service and I was taken care of. So this is the relationship between the liberated jiva, the pure devotee, and the Lord. The pure devotee, they're fully focused on how to satisfy the Lord, and they're fully convinced that the Lord. I was doing that. And it was just one of the happiest times of my life when I was working on that service. And I was exactly engaged according to my nature. So this is the relationship between the pure devotee and the Lord. And the pure devotee is happy giving the Lord his own life, giving the Lord his own potency, uniting the Lord with his pleasure potency, taking all the energy of the Lord and using it for the service of the Lord. I was really struck by what Devi Swami said yesterday, how Yukta Vairagya is very mystical. What's mystical about it is that this energy is the wife of the Lord. The material energy is also the wife of the Lord. When we use it in his service, we are uniting the Lord with his energy of pleasure. Something like you go to a wedding and you're happy to see the bride and the groom getting married. And you're taking happiness at their happiness is another good analogy. Or how children feel happy when they see their parents loving each other. Isn't it? Yeah. If you see that your parents are affectionate and kind to each other, you become happy. This is the natural way the jiva enjoys. And we were talking the last time, I think on Thursday, how the Lord gives the jiva happiness equal to himself. So even if you're in a benevolent company, most likely the CEO's salary is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 times yours. They may make sure that you're taken care of and you're nicely engaged, but they're not enjoying equally with you. Whereas Krishna is not like that. This is Achincha Bheda Bheda Tattva, that there's a oneness between the jiva and the Lord. There is an absolute oneness between the jiva and the Lord. And when the jiva is nicely engaged in service, the jiva feels just as much happiness as Krishna feels. Amazing. All right, that's Hanuman's policy. Now, Ravana's policy is the employee who steals, the employee who's embezzling from the company, the person who comes to your wedding and is having an affair with your wife. You know, you ever heard these stories? There's a wedding going on, but somebody's actually having an affair with the bride. Never heard about that kind of thing? So, you know, sometimes at the wedding, you know, sometimes the bride and the best man are doing their thing in another room. So that's Ravana's policy. Ravana's policy is, wow, look how Ram is enjoying. Let me take that enjoyment for myself. I want to become the husband of the goddess of fortune. I want to have this pleasure for myself. When I was 17, I was a chef in a Marriott hotel, and pretty much, you know, almost everyone who worked in that kitchen wanted to manage the hotel. They were all envious of the hotel management. I was just floored. I had no desire ever to manage a hotel. So they were envious. So this is the conditioned jiva's mentality. Let me steal Sita from Rome. Why should he have all the pleasure? You see, there's one thing the jiva can never do, and that is enjoy separately from Krishna. One can enjoy equally with Krishna through Krishna, but one cannot enjoy equally with Krishna separately from Krishna. Just like the little cells that become cancerous. You know, I doubt if they think this intellectually, but metaphorically. Why should I keep serving the stomach? Let me take care of myself. And then they become stomach cancer. Why should I keep serving the brain? Let me serve myself. And then they become brain cancer. And if the cancer continues, it will actually kill the body that it's dependent on. Therefore, conditioned souls are all their own worst enemies. So if we think about it logically, it's an absurd proposal that I could take the energy of the Lord away from the Lord and enjoy it myself without him, separately from him. I mean, logically, it doesn't make any sense. I'm so small. And the Lord's like, you can't do this. You know, you don't have the capacity to do this. It's not your nature. It just isn't reality. It's not that Krishna is trying to punish rebellious souls. You know, sometimes in some religions, it's explained like that. Believe in me and you go to heaven, and don't believe in me and you go to hell. You know, that's a despot. If you like me, I'll give you a position in my government and I'll take care of you. And if you don't like me, I'll put you in jail. And people paint God like that, and the conditioned souls often think that God is exactly like that. But it's not what it is. And I gave the example the other day. I gave this example a lot. It's like with this room. If I want to go out of this room, I use the door. If I try to go out of the window, I won't be very happy. And if I try to go out through the wall, I'll be really unhappy. Now, that doesn't mean that the architect and the builder designed the building with windows and walls to make people suffer. The architect and the builder didn't say, let's build this wall here. So when people try to exit and enter through the wall, they'll get hurt. They have to be in sync with my plan in order to be happy. And it wasn't like that. But if you don't use the room the way it's designed, you'll suffer. And if you use the room the way it's designed, you'll be happy. Or like, Thakur Murari very kindly gave me water in a cup. Now, let's say I try to eat the cup. I'll be unhappy. It's not the fault of him, and it's not the fault of the water. It's not the fault of the cup or the cup manufacturer. I'm trying to do something that's not my nature. I mean, I heard there was someone in the Guinness Book of World Records who ate an airplane, I assume bit by bit. I can't imagine it was very good for his health. So this Ravana policy is trying to do something that is just, it's not truth. And then we can say, well, God can do anything. Why can't he make it truth? And I really like the Christian writer C.S. Lewis in his Pilgrim's Regress. He says, you can't take a nonsensical thought and then just put in front of it, God can, and all of a sudden it makes it real. All right, but Krishna can do something. All right. You want to try to be me. You want to try to enjoy my energy without going through me. I'll give you a hallucination. Prabhupada gives the example like the child wants to cook, and so you give them clay, and you give them, little toy kitchen. It's very popular. One of the most popular toys for children is a toy kitchen. Sometimes they can even bake simple things. I remember when I was a kid, I don't know if they still sell them, an easy bake oven where it's safe for little children, but usually it's just a plastic mock-up. My great-grandsons have a toy kitchen like that. It's got a stove and, you can play. Because you don't want the child touching the fire. You don't want the little child, 2-3-year-old child touching the knives and the fire. They can't manage it. Can we manage the material energy? Anybody here been able to manage, anybody online, been able to manage the material energy? Anybody? Has it worked? We don't have the capacity. Like, I want to be the master of your wife, Lord. He's like, you don't have any idea who I'm married to. And as soon as you try to enjoy Lakshmi Devi, she becomes Durga for you. Right? First of all, she's not interested in having us as her husband. She's like, sorry, I have my own husband. Like Sita's like, I'm not interested in you, Robin. He said, but I'm rich and I'm strong and I'm handsome. She's like, I always liked in the drama, the line where Sita said, why should a royal swan who sports with her mate amidst lotus flowers concern herself with a crow who lives in filthy places? And which is very apropos because these verses, the Lord is talking about himself and the jiva as a swan. So we get an appearance of Sita, we get an appearance of Radha, we get an appearance of Lakshmi. That's actually Durga. She's actually riding on a tiger with a trident. We're like, ah! But I know, I'm going to be able to control you. Imagine that. How foolish we are. And as Prabhupada said, we're moving through various apartments. So we're trying different bodies. Maybe I'll be able to control the material energy if I'm a demigod like Indra. Maybe I'll be able to control the material energy if I'm a human. Maybe I'll be able to control the material energy if I'm a mosquito. Maybe if I'm a male, maybe if I'm a female. Maybe if I'm born in this country, maybe if I'm born in this country. Right? And even in one life, people do this. If I move to this other country, if I have this other career, and nowadays, if I change my gender, then I'll be able to enjoy the material energy. Doesn't work. That's not the way we enjoy the pleasure potency of the Lord. There is a way we enjoy the pleasure potency of the Lord, but not like that. There is a way the children enjoy the love of their mother, but not by marrying their mother. We have a way that we are also nourished by this Ladini Shakti. So at a certain point, the jiva says, it's not working. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. At first we think, I'm just going to adjust the material energy. I'm just going to get a different apartment. That's what's wrong. What's wrong is I've got the wrong body. I mean, think of the whole plastic surgery industry, the cosmetics industry, the fashion industry, which is all an attempt to change the body while still in it. Or, if I somehow adjust how I'm dealing with I have to figure out there must be a way that I can do it. And at a certain point, the conditioned jiva just says, this really isn't working. This is an untenable. Just like sometimes we have human relationships in this world that are like fundamentally flawed. And you try to make them work, and you try to make it work, and you try to make it work. And at a certain point you go, I don't think there's anything I can do to make this work. It's just not working. Or you have some machine and you're trying to get the machine to work in different ways, or software or something. And you just say, you know what? This is broken. There's something broken about this. So at that point, the jiva is prime for guru. This is a recurring theme in these verses, that at these moments of lucidity, like here for the wife, Vaidarbhi, when her husband dies, she has a moment of lucidity here. Of course, she's the disciple, she's a devotee already, but she's particularly open here. Then the guru comes, super soul comes, the super soul speaks from within the heart, the super soul sends the guru, hey, you're making a fundamental mistake. You're making a 1 + 1 mistake. Your a priori assumptions. In math, you have unproved and unprovable theorems, like 2 parallel lines will never meet. It's just assumed to be true. I mean, I don't know. On Jupiter, maybe parallel lines meet. We have no idea. Or in Alpha Centauri. No one knows if these mathematical things are true all over the universe. But we have these assumptions, unproved and unprovable. Right? You can't follow. You're going to follow 2 parallel lines out to the end of the universe and see if they ever meet. Maybe there's a space-time bend. I don't know. So the guru comes and says, your essential belief system is wrong. Your core belief system that you can be an independent enjoyer by adjusting the material energy is the problem. You can be an enjoyer, and you can be an equal enjoyer to God if you don't desire to be an equal enjoyer to God, and you instead desire to be a servant. As Prahlad Maharaj said, happy as long as you don't look for happiness. As soon as you look for happiness, you're in trouble. Which makes no sense to us. It's like, what? You're happy as long as you don't look for happiness, because happiness is already within us. It's already there. As soon as I look for happiness, then I'm feeling that I don't have happiness within me, that I have some kind of gap that needs to be filled. But that's not true. I don't. The little cancer cell, that first little cancer cell that starts the whole problem, it's thinking, this body's not taking good enough care of me. I have to take care of myself. But it's not true. Krishna is taking good care of us. Krishna is sharing the whole spiritual world with us. So this concept, I wonder if I could enjoy all of this without going through Krishna. That is the fundamental flaw. And the guru brings that up. But we're habituated to trying to do it this way. Have you ever tried to help somebody, right? Somebody's trying to do something. Like I was saying, we have these things that are fundamentally flawed. We have some relationships with other people or with machines or with something where there's a fundamental flaw. And if somebody comes and says, hey, you're doing it wrong. Have you ever tried to tell somebody that? Does it always work? Sometimes it works, but a lot of times it doesn't. Well, this is the way we've always done it. Yes, but have you gotten good results? No. So maybe you should try another way of doing it. Is that possible? Maybe you should look at your assumptions. I was talking with David Richeswamy about something like this in ISKCON management. And this is something that's been done in ISKCON management, and it isn't working. It isn't working. And maybe instead of trying to tweak it like this and like this and like this and like this, we should look at the underlying assumption and say the underlying assumption is wrong. But if someone's been doing something for a very, very, very long time with the wrong underlying assumption, is it easy to get them to change? No, it's extremely difficult. In the very famous book by Thomas Kuhn, Structure of Scientific Revolutions, which is well worth reading if you have a study guide. Don't try to read it without a study guide. I couldn't understand it without a study guide. But it's one of the classic books of understanding empirical science. He says the scientists have some paradigm. They have a worldview. They have fundamental assumptions. And all of their experiments are taking place within the parameters of that worldview. But no empirical worldview is going to explain everything perfectly. And so there are things that come up in nature or in the course of their experiments that are anomalies. They contradict the paradigm. And so the people who have that paradigm, they either ignore those things or they try to reinterpret them to fit their paradigm. You following me? Everybody understand? Now, at a certain point, there's enough anomalies so that you just can't ignore them anymore or reinterpret them anymore. And then there's a counter push of other scientists to establish an alternative paradigm, which again, can't explain everything. It's kind of like looking at a very complex piece of cloth, and some people are looking at a pattern on one part of it, and other people are looking at a pattern on another part of it, or a very complex painting. They haven't come up with a unified field theory where they can look at the whole thing at once. So if they want to switch to a new paradigm, who's going to resist that switch the most? The old people. So if somebody's been propounding a certain scientific paradigm for their entire scientific career, say from the time they were 20 to the time they were 50 or 60, are they going to want to switch? No. And so Kuhn says that generally the new paradigm doesn't become the new paradigm until those other people die. They literally have to die. Maybe retirement will work, but it's got to be a pretty. They generally have to die. Academics don't retire. Well, they might when they're really like 80.
They just become professor emeritus.
They just become emeritus. Yeah. So when people are really invested in something, no matter how much evidence you bring to them to the contrary, they don't want to switch. They've invested their whole identity there. Imagine this. This is one of the reasons Prabhupada said why it's mostly young people who take up Krishna consciousness. Because when you're old, I mean, we do see some old people take it, but it's harder. Because you have to, when you're young, you can blame it on your parents. You can say, well, my parents raised me the wrong way. But when you're older, you have no one to blame but yourself. You'd say, I invested my whole life in something that was wrong. Now, all of us conditioned jivas have invested uncountable lifetimes in this fundamental error. I can enjoy by being Ravana instead of being Hanuman. And so it's very difficult. What does Prabhupada say here? Back to this again. This thing that you read it and you go, ah. Unfortunately, the living entity is so greatly attached to material enjoyment, which is crazy. How much material enjoyment are we getting? I mean, seriously. Anybody here getting like unlimited material enjoyment? That keeps getting better and better and not mixed with misery, and you're enjoying it at every moment in ever expanding bliss. Anybody getting that from their material things in their life? Madness. Unfortunately, the living entity is so greatly attached to material enjoyment. This is the conception of material enjoyment. I'm just hearing Prabhupada talk about this today with the mode of passion. You have some idea. I have a house, I have a job, I have a family. I think of it like a picture, like you see this picture on the wall of my beautiful family standing in front of their house. See how happy I am. Like some advertisement. You've seen advertisements like for a luxury car and this happy family. Yes, Facebook. Happy family standing in front of their mansion with their dog and their car. Just buy this car. You buy the car. And you have to take care of the car. You get a little scratch on the car. It's But so attached to material enjoyment that he does not take the instructions of Krishna or his representative very seriously. So we say, yes, okay, theoretically, I accept, philosophically, I accept, but you know, I'll just sort of, I won't fully commit. Or I'll convince myself that I fully committed when I haven't. We also do that. So, you know, yes, I'm surrendered, and we're fooling ourselves. or we're like, well, I'm sort of kind of surrendered maybe. So does that count? Does my 0.1% surrender count? Is that going to be enough? Who defines? You define. Excellent question. Who defines? You define. How do you know if you're satisfied by eating? Only you. The hypothalamus tells you. There you go. Prabhupada says, if you're really in spiritual life, you will be joyful. There's a subjective experience. The subjective experience, I really like Bhagavad Gita 9.2 for the subjective experience. Rajavidya Rajaguyam Pavitram Idamutamam Pratyaksha Vagamam Dharmam Susukam Kartamabhyam. Rajavidya, you feel like you're full of the highest knowledge. Rajaguyam, you can really understand the essence of things. Pavitram, you feel yourself becoming purified. Pratyaksha, you're experiencing it directly. Dharmam, you feel that your life is really authentic. I gave the example the other day, the difference between actually eating a tree-ripened, locally grown, organic fruit and drinking the fruit-flavored sugar water. Yeah? You know the difference immediately between fruit-flavored 1% fruit juice, sugar water, and the tree-ripened Dharma. It's authentic. Susukam, when it's full of happiness. So how do we know we're authentically taking up the instructions of Guru and Krishna? We get that connection. We restore that connection. So if we connect a little bit sometimes, then we feel that a little bit sometimes. Yeah? And at least Krishna says, swalpa, even a little advancement in Krishna consciousness is enough to get us a good birth and another chance. But let's take this seriously. I mean, I'm speaking to myself as well. Let's take this seriously.
Consciousness, when we go out to work with people who have not heard about we generally are happier than them and we don't really get them.
Well, I would assume she's saying that when we go out in the world to work, we see we're happier than most materialists. Of course, anything you do in Krishna consciousness has some effect. So if you're taking up a little bit of Krishna consciousness, you'll feel proportionately that much spiritually enlivened, of course. And you're going to be happier and more full of knowledge and have a life of more authenticity than people who aren't taking it up at all.
So it also creates kind of a block or an illusion that, okay, I have surrendered.
Okay, well, that's the problem with sattva gun also. In sattva gun, you become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge, and you think you're better than others. So yes, we take up a little bit of Krishna consciousness, and then we're like, well, that's good enough. That's good enough. You know, I have more happiness than the Rajagun Tamagun people. I have more knowledge than the Rajagun Tamagun people. And I'm better than they are. I'm good. I'm speaking to myself too. I'm not picking on you. So yeah, that's the problem with sattva. Although sattva is a doorway to bhakti, the problem with sattva is you kind of get stuck at the doorway. Yeah, I got happiness. I got knowledge. I'm not engaged in sinful activity. I'm better than everybody else. I got it made. Yep. You know, and if you stay there, you can, if you're a little bit in sattva, you can become a poet, philosopher, scientist next life. And if you're a lot in sattva, then you can go to the heavenly planets and hope you don't get cursed to be a pig. So on that happy note, I think we will end and greet Radha Damodar. No, just the morning. I am planning, Krishna willing, to give classes tomorrow morning if Krishna allows. And then I'll be going back to New Goloka, Krishna willing. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Radha Damodar ki jai.